Next, we'll have a look at iterative constructs or loops. These are iterations of code. So firstly, the while loop. The while loop looks similar to the if statement, the difference being that it will loop through the condition continuously until the condition is no longer true. For example, while some condition is true, execute a block of code. Then check if the condition is still true and execute the code again. Repeat this until the condition is no longer true. You'll see the syntax looks similar to the if statement. You have the while condition, which checks for some condition. It then executes a block of code, and then in your block of code you can then increment or decrement a condition. We'll have a look at this in the practical example. In this example, we are going to display the numbers from 1 to 10 on the screen. So it's going to check if a value of a variable is less than 10, and until that is the case, it's going to echo the numbers 0 through 10 onto the screen until it finishes. So we'll start off. So opening and closing PHP tags. And we'll declare variable x. We'll start off by saying that x is 0. Then in our while statement, opening brackets, we need to add our condition. We will say while x is smaller than or equal to 10, do the following, opening curly braces. Then we'll echo onto the screen variable x. Going to add some HTML so we can neaten up the output. And then we'll use the increment operator to increase the value of x. So x starts off by being 0. We declared the value of x to 0. The while statement then compares the value of x. Remember we said it started off as 0. It checks to see whether it is smaller or equal to 10, which it is. It then goes through and starts executing the code. So it'll then echo the value of x onto the screen. And then in the next line, it increases the value of x by 1. So x is now equal to 1. It then goes back into the while statement, checks to see whether 1 is smaller or equal to 10. It is. It will then continue to execute this code until the value of x is 10. So let's have a look at this. We'll hit save, go over to our browser. So open the file. There you can see it has executed 0 through 10 onto the screen. Let's go back to our code, and let's say that if we were to change this to say 20. Now it's going to continue executing this code until the value of x is equal to 20. Let's hit save, go back to our browser. We'll hit refresh. And there you can see it has executed all the numbers 0 through 20 onto the screen. Next, we'll have a look at the do while statement. So the do while statement is similar to the while statement, with the exception that it executes a block of code before it evaluates a condition. It then checks the condition to determine whether to continue iterating through the loop. In other words, the do section will execute some code. Then it evaluates the while condition, and if a condition is met, it will iterate through the while statement until the condition is false. Otherwise, if the condition was false to start off with, the do while statement will only execute the code in the do part and ignore the code in the while block. So here we can illustrate just how it looks. You'll see that the do starts with an opening curly brace. It then executes some code. This is regardless of any condition. After the last curly brace, you'll see that you have the while statement. This is then where it evaluates a condition. If this condition evaluates to true, it will then go back up to the top of the do statement, execute the block of code, then it will check the while statement again, and continue this until the while statement evaluates to false. If, however, the while statement starts off evaluating as false, it will only execute the block of code in the do statement and ignore the rest. Let's have a look at an example of the do while statement. So we'll start off with our opening and closing PHP tags. and then we'll declare a variable. In this case, we're going to declare the variable x and assign the value of 0 to it. Then we start off our do while by using the do command, opening curly brace, space for the code that we need to execute, closing curly brace, and then the while statement, which will evaluate a condition between the brackets. We'll end with a semicolon. So in the do statement, we are going to echo the value of x, and then we'll just append some HTML just to make it more readable, and then increment the value of x with 1. So this section, it will execute regardless of whether the while statement's condition evaluates to true. Then in the while statement, the condition that needs to be met is that x is smaller than or equal to 10. So x starts off as 0. In the do statement, we'll echo the value of x. X is then incremented by 1. Then the while statement checks to see if the value of x is smaller or equal to 10. If that is the case, it goes back up to the top of the do statement and then repeats the iteration. So let's save and see what the output is in our browser. Alright, so we can see that it has output the values from 0 to 10 on our screen. Let's go back to our code and just see why it's done this. As we said earlier, x was assigned the value of 0. The do statement then executed some code regardless of any condition. X's value was incremented by 1, then went to the while condition and checked whether 1 was smaller than or equal to 10. It is indeed, so it goes back to the top of the do statement, echoes the code again, increments the value of x, x's value becomes 2, and this is then evaluated then all the way until x is 10, upon which it will then complete the execution of the code within the do statement.